Exciting draft, obviously one that we've never been a part of. I've never been to a draft, but you got to give Mark a lot of props. I thought, as far as the operation, I can't imagine any NFL draft being better than the one we hosted here. So, what a great experience! Some really cool moments with obviously Matthew Golden, Baron Sorrell. It was pretty epic.
Feel like helped the explosiveness of your offense at all the last 3 days?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think Golden, his ability to take. I mean, you can't coach 4.29, so or whatever they had him at. So between him, Savion Williams, another big explosive guy, 6'4", 220 plus, just being able to find different ways to get him the ball. I think he's still unpolished, I would say, as a route runner, but I think there's a ton of upside there in his development, and there's a lot of different ways that we'll be able to use him. So really excited about that.
Is there a comparison there to like a Deebo Samuel? Is that kind of how you would consider?
Well, you try to avoid comparisons. Certainly, you don't want to put that pressure. I mean, Deebo's a hell of a player that's done a lot in this league, but yeah, I think you love the versatility. I mean, just his ability to go in there and play wildcat quarterback, to get in the backfield and play as a halfback, or whatever, however you want to use him. Jet sweeps. You just want to find different ways to get in the ball because he's so big, he's so powerful, so explosive, and I think that guys just have a tendency to bounce off of him. So, I think he's just kind of scratching the surface of the playmaker that he can become.
Matt Goody stood up there yesterday and said, "I never thought I'd be up here talking about taking 2 receivers in the first 3 rounds." Did you ever think that was even a possibility as you guys went into this?
Not necessarily, but I got to give Goody a ton of credit and his staff. I mean, there's so much work that goes into this. I mean, these guys are scouting these guys for over a year, and I thought we always do a good job of following the board and drafting the best player available. And I think, the opportunity presented itself there. And I don't think that was necessarily the game plan going into it, but I think just the way everything fell, those were the best players. And so I think anytime you add competition to a room, that's a good thing for our football team. So it's going to be a competitive room. We all know that, and I think that's a positive. And our guys got to embrace that competition. And if they attack it the right way, I think collectively we'll continue to improve.
Did you need that speed at receiver with Christian out for a while?
Yeah, you can always use a lot of speed at receiver. I think you can find different ways to use them, but what was so impressive to me when you talk about Savion is. Well, obviously Golden ran what he ran. So anytime a guy's breaking sub 4.3s, he's legitimately fast. And I think what's so attractive about a guy like Golden is not only is he fast, but he's got, I would say, elite hands. He can run through a football. And then Savion, I can't remember what exactly, like mid 4.4s, 4.47 or something like that. But he did that, I think, 3 weeks after coming off an injury, or 3 weeks of training. So what his true speed is, I don't think we truly know.
Look at those first 3 picks. They each can help Jordan in a specific way. How important is that when you still have a young quarterback who is developing to make sure that you continue to pump that support and help in for him?
Yeah, I'd say you can never have enough weapons around a quarterback. And just the competition, adding a guy like Belton up front, and then we had Williams there in the 7th, 2 more guys that can go in there, and we had a much higher grade on Williams. And it's, like I said, you follow the board, you draft the best players. So that's going to be a competitive room when you talk about our offensive line room, and we'll figure it out in terms of trying to get our best 5 out there. And but there's going to be a lot of competition.
With how raw Savion Williams is as a route runner right now, do you think there's ways to still find for him to help you in 2024?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you can always design. You know, we always talk about the only thing that limits you in terms of your creativity is your imagination. So we'll get back in the lab a little bit and we'll come up with some good things for him. But I was super impressed. So he was one of the guys that we had in on a 30 visit, and I think we had a great visit with him. He was very intelligent, and I think he'll be a guy that will be able to handle the load, not just as maybe your prototypical outside receiver, but I think he'll be a movable chess piece that we can find different ways to put him in advantageous situations for us to get him the football.
You said many times, going back to start of last year, that the vision you had defensively for how you wanted to play was not exactly how you finished the season. You had to adjust in real time. With what you did in the draft today, with what you have already on the roster, do you feel like you have the horses to play that initial vision of defense with rushing with 4 at this point?
Well, I don't think necessarily we want to go back to that, to be honest with you. I think just coming from an offensive perspective, it definitely is harder to prepare for somebody that can throw a variety of things at you. You're talking about front variation. But I think what is absolutely critical in terms of having defensive success in this league is the style of play. And I think that, I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel like when you go and you watch the tape and you look at it throughout the course of the season, I think our style of play just continued to improve. And I think at the end of the season, we were playing some really good football. I thought we did, you could argue, we played one of our better games defensively, you know, in that playoff game versus Philly. So just got put in some bad situations via turnovers throughout the course of the game.
You mentioned with Pat the other day that you spoke to Jordan Thursday night. Who called who, and can you share some of what that discussion was about?
Yeah, so, you know, you always want to kind of connect with the quarterback when you get him some pieces. And so I FaceTimed him, and he's like, man, sub 4.3. He's like, I got to get that arm loose. So, I mean, he can roll, and I said, hey, man, you're just going to have to get that ball up on time and out early.
Matt, I don't know if you've had the chance to see Barron's video from when he was in here. Just, thoughts on just his story, just and to be in this situation, being in Green Bay to be drafted, and just to have that moment.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So just going back to that that moment, we were all unaware that he was here. And so when the commissioner got on stage and was announcing him, to be honest with you, I thought he was going to announce somebody to announce the pick for him. And then to watch him come out, he was obviously very emotional, which I think is always a good sign. And to see the way our crowd reacted and how they embraced him. And then I wasn't in the stadium, but I heard he was doing the Lambeau Leap and all that, and he had his family here. So I got an opportunity to meet him and his family, and it was a pretty cool moment. It was pretty surreal, and combine that with the fact that, I mean, it's ironic that he and Golden were teammates, and they were both here. And I texted Matthew right after that pick, and he was ecstatic. He said he was in the middle of a workout, which you love to hear anyway, but he said he got turned up from that, so that was pretty cool.
No trades this year, at least tied to at least about a draft pick. Was the draft room where you kind of like, was it feeling a little different than a normal movie type of atmosphere?
Not necessarily. You just never know how those trades can occur. I think there were a couple times we were really close to making some moves, and it just didn't shake out in our favor, because you always want to add value when you make a move, and you want to put your team in a favorable situation. But you got to give Goody a lot of credit, because he stayed disciplined and did what was best for the team.
The last couple of years since drafting Van Ness, you've talked about maybe using him sometimes as an inside rusher. Really hasn't happened. Is that still just a maybe thing, or is that anywhere near being more concrete? What's your thinking there?
Yeah, I think it just depends. That's going to be situationally. When we get in those obvious pass situations, you can kick them inside and do some of those things. And with DeMarcus coming in, there may be some new ideas that we can implement. We're just kind of getting involved in that stuff right now. We had our first virtual week this last week. We'll get our players in on Monday, which will be great. It was great to see. You saw, an uptick in the number of guys that were in town that were working out throughout the course of the week. I want to say we had like 20-some guys that came in the building throughout the course of the week. And so we'll get all that stuff will get implemented here as we get going.
Matt, what was that like, having just that first week virtually, and was Jair a part of that?
Well, I think it was, I thought it was good. I thought it was good as it could have been in regards to just kind of get them reacclimated in the ball. And but I just didn't want them to, there's a lot going on around here, obviously with the draft, and then we have some logistical issues, I would say, within our building that we got to deal with temporarily as the new locker room's being built. And so I just didn't think it was worth all the fuss to, have them in the building.
Was Jair a part of it at all?
Yes.
You've had a lot of football things on your plate this week. At any point, did you get able to kind of get out and get a glimpse of what was going on around the draft? Did you see any of this around you?
Well, a little bit. I think I took my family out there to the stage yesterday and got some pictures with my kids, which was a pretty cool experience. But, from where we're located on the second floor in our football building, to look out and just see the number of people, and obviously some of those camera shots on the television were unbelievable. So I thought the turnout seemed to be pretty strong. What a beautiful day today. Today was obviously the best day in terms of weather-wise. Yesterday was, not, I would say, less than ideal, but I still think a lot of people showed out last night as well.
Yesterday was Green Bay, right?
It was. That's par for the course. You have a solid day, then a miserable day, and then a beautiful day. So that is, but I thought all in all, I thought our people did a really good job. Just talking to some of the national media people that came through here, just couldn't be more complimentary of just how people treat them around here. And I think that's a pretty good indication of just the people of Wisconsin.
Why is it important to get bigger on the offensive line, and what does that do for you as a offensive play caller, designer?
Well, you want to get bigger as long as they're talented. So I think it all goes hand in hand. But I just, I think it was pretty evident last year when you look at a team like Philly. I mean, they dominated most teams up front on their offensive line as well as their defensive line. So I think in order to combat some of these teams that have elite pass rushes, you better be able to protect the quarterback and run the ball. So I thought to add big guys that can actually move, I think that's a big-time positive for us.
So was that a turning point? Because, your offensive line last year, you had a good run in terms of availability with your starting five. Was it something toward the end of the season where you start thinking, let's move Elton in, and then you've addressed it free agency with Banks, a second-round pick with Belton? Was it toward the end of the season where you said, we've got to change there?
Not necessarily. I just think we're always, and Goody's doing a great job of this, we're always looking for opportunities to upgrade or bring in more competition. And I think that's exactly what we did.
So Matt, when you add these guys who are left tackles, does that give them a better chance to be guards just because of the college teams usually put
Yeah, I just think typically most teams are going to put their best offensive lineman at the left tackle position, provided that they have, the prerequisites to play that position. And traditionally, I think our guys have done a great job of really targeting those types of players. And like you said, I mean, typically your best player is in that spot. So a lot of those guys get drafted in the National Football League, and then it's on us as a staff to try to develop those guys if we see the need and or the fit to move them inside.
Based on how you use Morgan, do you want to start them all at tackle right away?
We'll see. I mean, we've had a lot of internal discussions in regards to how we best rep these guys and where the competition may fall.
What do you feel like you added to your pass rush with the 3 guys early today?
Well, we added, just going down the list with Sorrell, I think he's a big-time culture guy, and he played 4 years at Texas and played at a high level in some big-time games. One of the things, I don't know if I mentioned it in here, but, as we get these 30 visits, and we had a couple guys from Texas come through here, you always ask these guys, who are the best practice players, or if you're going to a team, who are you bringing with you? And they consistently, unanimously always pointed to him. So I think that speaks volumes to not only the type of player he is, but the type of teammate, type of person, type of competitor, and you can never have enough of those guys. Oliver is a guy, he only played, 2 games this year? I think, I want to say he had like 14 pressures and a sack and a half, and I would say he's a little bit more of a DPR at this standpoint, but one thing that I think was pretty evident throughout the course of the season is we needed a little bit more speed and a speed rusher on the edge, and I think that's exactly what he does. But he's another guy that has versatility in terms of we feel like he can play as an off-the-ball linebacker as well. And then who's the last guy? Oh yeah, Brinson. I mean, he's a bigger body interior player, so it's not so much on the edge, but just adding value inside. We losing a guy like T.J. Slayton. You want to replace that, and so we're hopeful that he can come in here and do some of the dirty work in that regard.
You guys have the way you go about things, you're not going to change it, but considering the Jair situation so up in the air, was there talks of maybe prioritizing cornerback a little bit more? I know it's always best player available, but just in that specific kind of situation.
Yeah, I would say going into it, you certainly were thinking that that could be a possibility, but like I said, just how the board fell and staying disciplined to our process, sometimes that guy's not there.
Something about corners in the 7th round, considering this is a 3rd straight year that you guys have gotten a corner in that round?
Not necessarily. That's just kind of how it fell, like I said, and just, I do think that there is, obviously need comes into and factors into some of the decision making, but I wouldn't say it necessarily drives it, and that's why, we've done what we've done. But you could ask Goody about that as well.
Matt, of your picks, you had 5 guys that you had on visits, and a lot of them, you've talked about culture guys, fits like that, guys who love football, all that stuff. That's always important, but in the changing landscape of college football, they're paid now, the portal stuff, are those things even more important? Is that more of a focus, something maybe you didn't have to ask in the past that comes into play more now?
Well, I don't necessarily. I think if you ask all these guys, they're going to give you pretty much the same answer. So this is where the scouting process, in my opinion, is so imperative. Is you got to do a lot of digging to find out how much. Not only do they love the game, but do they need it? I think guys that are genuinely invested and love it, you're going to get the most out of them. And so our scouts do an unbelievable job of just uncovering some of that stuff because, like I said, I think if you ask them all, they're all going to give you pretty much the same answer.
Matt, I know you're just at the beginning now with Monday, the guys getting here. I'm not asking for a Super Bowl or bust proclamation, but with what you did today or the last 3 days, what you did in free agency, and the type of guys you have coming back, how do you kind of feel about where your team is at as you kind of launch the offseason?
Well, I think if you ask 32 teams when the draft is over, did you get better? They all would give you the same answer. They all feel good about it. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter about how you feel. It's about what you do. And I think that's the challenge. And, we've kind of got a condensed off season, I'd say, in terms of the first week being virtual and the last week we're kind of cutting it a little short, which I think about 28 of the 32 teams from what I saw are doing the same thing. So it's about our time and what we do when we're in the building, just being urgent. And to me, if you want more and you want to go further, you got to be willing to give more. And that's what we got to do. And it's going to be a collective effort. We need everybody to have that mindset, to come in with that mindset and just get to work.
Can I ask one last, what's the reason for all these teams cutting off season short? The CBA limits what you can do anyway. What's the thinking behind cutting it even shorter?
Well, I think it's just, if you look at where the calendar fell, I mean, you're going into late June, and I think we all know the rigors of an NFL season and how long it is. So I think you just got to kind of decide in terms of the value from the end of the offseason to the start of training camp, how much time you want to give these guys. And, you know, we're going to have plenty of time to be together. And I think collectively across the league, most teams feel that way.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.